In this video, we're going to take a look at the process of saving a rendered image, whether that be a still picture or a full-length animation. To demonstrate how to set things up, I'll be using a file named Save Render. You can find it in the Working Files folder for this chapter. Scrubbing the timeline, you'll see that we've got a little animated logo, various elements coming in from different directions, all settling around the middle of the screen. Let's leave our time slider anything after frame 100, and we'll see if we can't render things out. We'll do that by going to the upper right-hand side of the toolbar, clicking on the Render Production icon. Okay, once we're ready to save things up, we'll want to open the Render Setup controls that you can find just to the left of the Render Production button. The icon looks like a teapot with a little box to its right-hand side. Okay, a couple of things to mention. At the top of the settings, you have your time output. This is where you decide on the number of frames that you're wanting to render. For a still image, you'll leave it set to single. If wanting to instead render an animation, you can choose either Active Time Segment, which represents the length of your timeline down at the bottom of the interface, or you can choose a custom range of frames that you're wanting to render. Let's take the setting back to single. The next important setting will be to determine the output size of the image that you're going to create. You'll find those controls about halfway down in the dialog in a section called Output Size. The width and height numbers control your resolution. Using a setting of 640 by 480 translates to mean that your resulting render will have a total of 640 dots of color, or pixels in other words, running horizontally, for every 480 pixels going up and down. You can easily change those numbers by either typing in a custom value or by choosing one of the preset resolution buttons you see to the right-hand side. Let's click on the 320 by 240 preset and we'll hit the Render button at the lower right-hand corner of the controls. Let's also see how things would look if we chose instead the 800 by 600 preset. Once the button's been activated, we'll again click Render. So we pretty much get the same thing, but in a larger size. You can also go into the tab named Custom and choose a variety of other pre-configured resolutions. Anything from high def, HD, all the way up to rendering in a size adequate to fit a 70mm IMAX movie screen. Let's switch over to HDTV video. We're now working with an aspect ratio of 16 pixels horizontally for every 9 pixels that run vertically. You may have heard that as being referred to as a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. That's what's meant by that phrase. Using the 480 by 270 preset, let's render again. Now we're using an image format similar to what you see on most flat-screen television sets on today's market. 16 pixels of color running left to right for every 9 pixels running up and down. You can also save your own custom settings, which comes in real handy when you're finding yourself continually rendering at a certain resolution. That can be set up by simply right-clicking on any of the preset buttons. Let's do this. We'll right-click on the 320 by 180 preset. In the dialog, we'll set the width value to 900, then press Enter. Having ourselves locked into HD format, that automatically changes the height. Once that's done, we can click OK, and we can now notice the new preset control. Let's change over to the 900 by 506 and we'll render again. You might also notice the Render Setup icon on the top right-hand side of the rendered frame window. It gives you the exact same controls that you'll find on the main toolbar. It just gives you a little easier access to the settings if you're working in the window. And lastly, to save the file, you'll head a little further down to the Render Output area, where over on the right-hand side, you'll click on the Files button. This tells Max that you're wanting to now save things out, and in doing so, you'll have 3 questions that need answers. Where you want to save the file, what do you want to name the file, and which specific file format or file type will you want to save things in. When saving out to individual images, whether that be for a single still picture or a series of sequentially numbered pics that can then be later compiled together for one reason or another, you've got quite a few file formats to choose from JPEG to PNG, to Targa or TIFF. You'll simply want to choose the file type that works best for what the image or images are going to be used for. Published over the web, print, used for compositing, whatever the application. When saving out instead to a movie format, in other words, when rendering a series of images that you'll then want to sew together into one animated movie or clip, your options there are typically two, either saving in AVI format or out as a QuickTime movie. Either way you go, rendering for a still image or animated clip, make sure to always check with what's going to work best for your end use. There's nothing worse than rendering in a certain format, only to find that that file or format type is the incorrect type. So, like a seasoned carpenter who's learned their lesson over the years, measure twice and cut once. In other words, be on the safe side and always make 100% sure that you're rendering your work in the proper format. It'll save you on both time and unneeded frustration. Once your render is done, you can view it directly inside Max by going to the Rendering pull-down menu and about 3/4 of the way down choosing View Image File. Here's the still image rendered out as Max Logo Still. And here's the clip rendered out in AVI format as Max Logo Movie. You can find both in the Working Files folder for this chapter. So there you go with saving out a render, whether it be for a still image or a full-length movie. Now you've got the techniques you need to know in order to be able to render out your next project.